Have you ever met someone that is all spit and fire? Well, that's what today's story is about. My name is Jay, and welcome to another episode of Parlay with Jay, where I have the opportunity to help you to improve your English through conversational and shadowing stories. Today I have a C-2 lesson and doing something a little bit different. Instead of having the subtitles printed on the screen, I have placed today's story down in the description and you can follow me along. Let me know in the comments section, which one do you prefer? The subtitles in English on the screen or the story down in the description? Let's dive into today's story. Terry had always been the kind of guy who could turn a small disagreement into a full-blown spectacle. A full-blown spectacle. So a spectacle is a event, okay? Usually something that you see that kind of blows your mind. Like seeing a kid throw a temper tantrum in a store, you would say, wow, that's a spectacle. Or when I went to New York for the first time, I saw a guy walking around in a diaper playing a guitar with a cowboy hat on. I actually took a picture of him. It was such a spectacle. Back when he and Kathy were dating, their arguments could be heard down the block. Their arguments could be heard down the block. Now, that's pretty loud. One moment, they were laughing. The next, Terry was all spit and fire, waving his arms like he was conducting an invisible orchestra. Waving his hands like he was conducting an invisible orchestra. So when he was arguing, he had to be like, Kathy, I can't stand you. You're getting on my nerves. I mean, just really doing too much. Kathy matched his energy, her sharp retorts landing like darts in a pub game. So a retort is a quick and sharp reply. So I might say, I don't like your outfit. Well, I would say, well, I don't like your outfit. Okay, a quick, sharp reply. You know what? Your girlfriend's unattractive. Well, your mama's unattractive. So a quick, sharp, I mean, just as we would say, a gut puncher. Oh, it really hurts. The breaking point came on a rainy Tuesday. Terry had forgotten their anniversary again. Kathy's face turned the kind of red you only see on warning signs. And Terry, instead of apologizing, made a sarcastic comment about her overreacting. Sarcastic. So when something or someone is sarcastic, you're mocking them. You're criticizing them. You might be in the car with someone and say, okay, you really drive like my grandmother. So you're being sarcastic. You're criticizing someone by making fun of them. Okay? That was it. Kathy walked out, the door slamming with a finality that made Terry's stomach sink. 5 years passed. Terry tried dating other people, but no one quite matched Kathy's mix of warmth and stubbornness. He often thought about the last fight, replaying her words like a scratched record. Over time, sharp edges had worn down. Life had a way of tempering him. Okay? So when you replay someone's words like a scratched record, you're basically thinking about it over and over and over again. That same moment, that same spectacle, that same event. I remember my parents saying, "Jay, talking to you, I sound like a broken record or a scratched record. I have to keep saying the same thing over and over." Now notice Terry had been tempered by life. So when a person is tempered, they become more mild in their behavior, a little bit more less flamboyant or fiery. Okay, so Terry sounds like he matured. Then one Saturday, fate decided to stir the pot. Terry was in a grocery store staring at a pyramid of oranges when he heard a familiar laugh. He turned and there was Kathy holding a bag of pasta, her hair tied back, looking good, looking both exactly the same and completely different. So some people, when you separate from them or you haven't seen them for a while, they can look the same but different. They may have grown and now they're looking better, but you recognize them because they look the same. So no doubt Terry missed Kathy and she was probably looking good. They stood there awkward for a moment. Terry cracked a joke about how he'd finally learned to use a calendar, and to his surprise, Kathy laughed. The conversation was surprisingly easy, as if their years apart had sanded away the roughness. Okay, so sometimes you need to separate from people in order to cause the relationship to get better. By the time they reached the checkout, Terry felt a rekindled spark. Rekindled. So, in other words, his feelings began to come back for Kathy, and they were not feelings of anger. Kathy admitted she thought about calling him a few times, but didn't think he'd changed. Terry assured her he had, though he also confessed he still burned toast. Yeah, I've changed, but I still can't cook. That day, they decided to meet for coffee. It wasn't a grand reunion with fireworks, more like a gentle truce after a long battle. So a truce is when two sides or more declare peace. Okay? But as they sat in the cafe, sipping and smiling, it was clear the fire or the passion was still there. Only now it was the kind that warmed instead of burned. So they still had feelings for one another. They still had fire or passion, or they still wanted to be with one another. There still was an attraction. But Terry was not all spit and fire. He was not the type to want to argue and start fights with Kathy. He was no longer all spit and fire. Okay, so some of the vocabulary words I talked about: spectacle, spit and fire, retort, sarcastic, tempering, rekindled, and truce. I have a few more that for the sake of time, I am not going to go over, but they are in my notes. And if you would like my notes, my link is down in the description. Well, that's going to do it for today's story about Terry and Kathy being all spit and fire. I hope you have learned something. And if you have enjoyed today's lesson, be sure to share it with a friend. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful day and you join me on my next English lesson. I'll see you then.